Yeah, it's like water going down a drain. Around the edges, it goes very slowly, but as it gets close to the center, it goes faster and faster and faster. I mean, that's what happened with power, as I talked about. Over history, it's happened a little bit here, a little bit there, but now it's gone on exponential curve. And but, you know, our founders experienced the King of England was the king of their country, the commander of their military, and the head of their church. In other words, the king decided what the people could believe. It was like hate crime legislation. If you believed the way the king did, you were fine. But if you had other views, then you were not equal before the law.
And they've now had the hate crime bill pass the House that says word for word, if you hurt somebody's feelings, you get arrested. So the end of the First Amendment, stay there. Let's get into the founding of our country with that Mayflower Compact that I had 2 family members that were signatories to. And then we will expand out from there with our guest what the founders went through and then how we rediscover this culture. Because as this tyranny unfolds, we have to show the public what the alternative is, liberty versus the tyranny we're now seeing.
On the moon,
yeah, it's sundown on the Union. If you don't think NAFTA and GATT didn't destroy the economy, remember they told us that was going to make jobs. Imagine what their carbon tax is going to do. I've read their own documents here on air. IMF, World Bank, Club of Rome, it's designed to bankrupt things. They want you bankrupt. They want to vertically integrate. They're monopoly men. They're not free market. And they've created this banking crisis to do it. Arrest the bankers. And we do that by starting the audit of the Fed. It'll make Madoff look like a choir boy. Going back to Bill Federer with the website AmericanMinute.com. Okay, Mr. Federer, there's a short segment, long one coming up. Let's start now getting into that Mayflower Compact and then the hell our forefathers went through to fight for this beautiful liberty we've had.
Well, it's interesting. The Pilgrims were going to land in Virginia, which was an Anglican colony, and they got blown off course, and they didn't want to just get off the boat and every man be a law unto themselves, so they decided to write their own government document, the Mayflower Compact. Now, the question is, how did they learn how to do this? Well, guess what? They were all dissenters. They were all basically religious nonconformists. And so when they were in Holland, their pastor was a guy named John Robinson. And he taught them if they have big decisions, they all fast and pray and vote. This was their church government. Well, they basically applied that to this Mayflower Compact. And there's a line in there that says, having undertaken for the glory of God and the advancement of the Christian faith, a voyage to plant the first colony in the northern parts of Virginia. It says, mutually in the presence of God, we covenant ourselves together to form a civil body politic and render all due submission to the laws that we pass. In other words, they submitted themselves to each other under God and then created this government and then agreed to submit to the laws. Well, they learned this from the church government. There's no other place that they could have learned it from. And this became a blueprint for Connecticut, which is called the Constitution State. And the Connecticut Constitution became a blueprint for the U.S. Constitution, which starts off, we the people. So in other words, we're granting ourselves permission to start a government.
That's right. Whenever we say in the Declaration of Independence, you know, it talks about how it's our right, it's our duty to throw off tyranny. And when atheists get mad that we say it's God-given, the point is it comes from no man. It is basic, organic rights to be free creatures, sentient beings. And the first time we see this in history is what you're saying is the Mayflower Compact. They are granting among themselves to be governed by themselves by consenting to this law with each other.
Right. I've read through every charter of every colony, and each one of them, it's the monarch granting them permission. And in America, we're not like Canada or Australia where they still acknowledge the monarch of England figure as the figurehead. We simply grant ourselves permission. And the word
That's right.
federal,
We don't have privileges that is something illegal that you're granted to do. A license is authorization to do something that would be prohibited. So it's what a slave has. We are declaring that we are the sovereigns under God and no king but King Jesus. We're not worshiping King George III.
Right. And the word federal means covenant. But you're bringing out a key point where in the Declaration it says all men are created equal. This was revolutionary. All throughout history, there was not equality. If you were friends with the king, you were more equal. If you were enemies of the king, you were less equal. And so it's sort of like today, where if you're friends with the party in power, you get more rights. Hate crime legislation, if you have that ideology. But if you believe in traditional values, guess what? You weren't less equal. And so it's interesting. I spoke at the U.S. Capitol. I did half a dozen congressional staff briefings a year or so ago, and they had congressmen's staffers and so forth. And afterwards, I got a phone call from the Washington Post, and the reporter said, "Are you trying to push Christianity on America? Like having secret meetings in the Capitol?" And I said, "Well, can I ask you a question?" I said, "Where did the idea of equality come from?" And the reporter said, "Well, I don't know." I said, "Well, it didn't come from Islam, did it? I mean, in Islam, infidels are not equal to Muslims. Women are not equal to men. It takes two women to testify in court against one man. A woman gets half the inheritance that a man gets. A man can have 4 wives. A woman can't have 4 husbands. Of course, I don't know which woman would want 4 husbands, but nevertheless, there's not equality." I said equality did not come from Hinduism, where they have the caste system, and if you're an untouchable in that lowest caste, you're less than human. You have to take care of the garbage, clean the toilets, live outside of town. You're not equal to the Brahmin. The Brahmin in their divinity. And then in the atheistic belief, if you are useful to the state, you're worth more. In America, you're equal no matter what.
All right, stay there. What comes to mind today, though, is in California, over 1 million state workers and police are above the law. They can't be pulled over. They can't be given tickets. The photo enforcement can't work on them at toll roads and red light cameras because the computers can't read their plates.